Hello and welcome to this walkthrough of the Management Case Study mock exam. My name is Helen Crofts. The aim of this presentation is to guide you through the process of your first mock exam. I will not be telling you the answers as we go along. The mock exam will be debriefed on day one of the classroom course. But I will be helping you to get started and will show you some key techniques such as planning. Make sure you have everything you need before you start: a pen and paper for taking notes and planning, a calculator for any analysis you might want to do, something you can type your answers on, the pre-seen information, and of course the mock exam questions. Bear in mind we are aiming for progression, so there will be lots of help for the first task, gradually reducing until you attempt the final task entirely on your own. Ready? Then let's start. So this is the first screen you will see in the exam. Hopefully it will have your name on it. On each screen there will be a button at the bottom to click to advance to the next screen. Subsequently, you will also see a back button so you can scroll back and forth. Once you click next on this first screen, the timer will start, so make sure you are ready. Have a quick scan of this information in the exam, but don't linger. Remember, time is counting down. There will be between 3 and 5 sections in the exam, each separately timed. Each section usually contains one task, and there will be between 30 and 60 minutes per section. The most common length for a section in Management Case Study is 45 minutes. You will have a timer on each screen in the exam, so all you are really looking for here is what lies ahead. For example, you may want advanced warning that the last section is 60 minutes long, to mentally prepare yourself. The next page will give you some initial information. It may also give you the task, but that is often on a separate screen, as we will see in a minute. On this screen you will have access to the pre-seen information. This is available on every screen in the exam. As you can see, there is also some reference material for this task. You can access this by clicking on the button. The time is shown at the top, and you also have access to discount tables and formula at the bottom, although you will rarely use them. Finally, we have the next button at the bottom. Let's click and see what happens. So here we have a separate screen with information about the task. This is where the requirements are, and this is the first screen you should find when you start the section. It can usually be found by pressing Next until you come to the blank response box and clicking back one screen. Note that each screen also has a scratch pad and calculator button at the top, but you probably won't use these, so we can ignore them for now. There will then be a screen for you to write your answer in. Usually the to, from, date and subject fields will be pre-filled, so are not something you need to bother with. This input area has quite limited functionality. You can't do bullet points, so don't get into the habit of using them in your mocks. The next screen will ask you if you want to move into the next section. However, don't panic about accidentally clicking next. When you do click next in the answer screen, the software will pop up a box asking if you're sure you want to move on, and that doing so will end the task. So unless you just keep clicking OK without thinking about it, you shouldn't be able to end the section until you are ready. Let's have a look at the first section of the mock now. Even if you have a paper copy of this, it is probably worth attempting this mock with the questions open on the screen instead. Although this can be a bit frustrating, as you will need to flick between the questions and your answer, this is exactly what you will have to do in the exam, so it is good practice. First thing to note is how long the task is. Looking at the top right of the screen in the exam, and right at the top of this screen here, you will see it is 45 minutes. There are 180 minutes in total in the exam to earn a maximum of 100 raw marks. So you have 1.8 minutes per mark. If we divide 45 minutes by 1.8, we therefore see that we are aiming for 25 marks worth. Now, can you find the requirements? We are asked to think about how to motivate staff to work on new automated production lines. It is important that you think about the situation described in the exam. We don't want a standard list of ways to motivate. We also need to think about change management issues. Think who else may be affected by the change. What are their concerns? And how might they disrupt the process? If we divide the total 25 marks across these two areas, we can aim for about 12 marks per section. This should equate to at least 6, ideally 8 or 9 points for each. Let's have a think about planning. Don't think of planning as a waste of time. If you plan properly, you will probably be able to type more, as you'll be much more efficient, rather than having to think as you go. A plan will also focus your mind on the requirements and hopefully prevent you going off on too much of a tangent. There are lots of ways to produce your plans. I prefer to use the whiteboard and pen provided and write my plan in columns. It keeps my thoughts ordered and ensures I don't miss anything crucial. So, I would draw 3 columns. The first column will be for the requirements. Write in here the key word or phrase that sums up what they want you to do. So for this task, everything should be about how to motivate. The middle column is for the main elements of your answer. So everything here should address the requirement. So in this task, everything should be a way of motivating. The danger here is if this middle column is just pure textbook knowledge, you risk picking up very little credit. Your answers must be applied to the company. So in the final column, we will note anything relevant to the scenario. For example, a way of motivating the staff may be to involve them in induction of the new employees. If we then noted in the third column that the Grapple staff are used to working closely together as they are all based on a single site, then we have made our answer relevant to Grapple. You are now going to have a go at planning the first task. If you need to write anything down from this screen, pause the video now. So you are now going to try and plan the first task based on the suggestions just given. The examiner suggests between 20 and 30% of the time available is spent reading and planning. So we are going to take 10 minutes to plan this 45-minute task. Leave the video running. The screen will be counting down your 10 minutes. You should now have some thoughts in your plan. You may not have as many points as you are aiming for. Don't worry about that at this stage. Hopefully you have something to say under each of the headings. We now need to think about typing up your answer. Think about your structure. The headings you use show the marker that you have addressed all the requirements. Each point you make should be properly developed. A good approach to take here is to use what, why, and so what. Your what is the main content of each point, i.e., what is the motivational technique you are identifying. Why looks at why it will help, and then so what considers the implication for Grapple. For each point, once you have identified the what, why, and so what, all in one short paragraph, you should then move on to a new paragraph and a new point. Avoid time-wasting waffle at all costs. You have 35 minutes left to do this. So spend 15 minutes on each heading, and then 5 minutes at the end for a bit of a tidy up. So pause this video and spend the 35 minutes writing up your answer. Remember, we won't be discussing the answers as we go. We will look at them on the classroom course. Hopefully you got on okay with the first task. Don't worry if it all seems a bit new and scary. The process will get easier very quickly. Here is the second section. Another 45-minute one, so again we have 25 marks to aim for. Can we find the requirements? We need to make sure we read the reference material too, given here as an attachment, and use the information. There are basically two requirements. So for a 45-minute task, that means about 12 marks each. The first task asks about the decision tree. You need to explain what the tree shows, as well as do a few illustrative calculations. You won't be asked to do detailed calculations in the exam, but you might have to do a few, as required here. Even if you struggle a little with the calcs, there are plenty of explanations also required in the first part. And the second requirement is a fairly straightforward discussion of non-financial factors. You now need to plan your answer to this task. Leave the video running, as we will be counting down again. So, the first requirement. You need to take the decision tree apart, bit by bit, explaining each element. A few simple calculations are needed. And don't forget to make a recommendation. Where possible, make sure your points are related to the information given, not just a textbook answer. The second requirement needs you to consider what else would be a factor, in addition to the financial issues. So, for example, you could identify some strategic reasons why one option is better or worse. You could maybe bring in real options, such as follow-on options, as well as the impact the decision will have on key stakeholders. Discuss as many examples as possible. You now need to write up your answer. Pause the recording for 35 minutes. You've had your 10 minutes planning, and complete the answer to this task. Here is the third task. Spend 2 minutes finding the requirements and thinking about how your time should be allocated, as well as how many marks are available. You can pause the video while you do this. So you have two main requirements here. One is on ethical and environmental implications, and the other is on costing systems. In terms of ethical and environmental implications, think of all the stakeholders that might be affected by this project. How might they receive unfair treatment as a result of the project going ahead? And think about how this project could impact on the general environment and also the local communities. What plans could we put in place to mitigate these issues? Try to be as practical and as common sense as possible here. In terms of the costing systems, you need to think in your plan about what kind of costing systems Grapple currently have, what kind of information are they currently gathering, and how might these change if we move to a more automated environment. Focus on the need for efficiency here, so how Grapple might best use the resources they have available to generate outputs. So you've had 2 minutes to look for the requirements. We've had a bit of a think about what you need to do. You now need to pause the recording for the remaining 43 minutes to plan and write up your answer. Spend about another 7 or 8 minutes planning and 35 minutes writing up your answer. Spend 15 minutes on each requirement, which leaves 5 minutes to check your work and tidy it all up. Here is the final task. As the aim of this walkthrough is for you to progress to being able to attempt a full mock exam on your own, there will be no discussion of the requirements here. So get ready and off you go. Pause the recording for 45 minutes to attempt this task. So, well done for completing your first mock. What's next? Submit the mock for marking. Review any technical areas across P2, E2 and F2 that you still feel are rusty. Maybe review the videos again. And then reread the pre-scene before attending the classroom course.